everybody, and welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing what to do when you are facing a sense of adversity from your school administration. Over the last few weeks, months, since I've stepped away from the classroom, I've talked with countless teachers about how they are feeling frustration with administration and maybe with other schools, leaders, or individuals within their building, and that they're not able to thrive at the level that they would like to thrive at. That may be that their family values, or maybe the jobs that their families have and or their passions don't really align with that of their upper administration. The first thing I'm going to say here is that remember that you are not committed to having to stay at that school building. There are many buildings that you'll find throughout your own district that may be more innovative, may have more understanding administration, and may have better support systems built in. So just always keep that in mind, and that can be something in your back pocket to think about. Number two is you are never committed to any career choice that you're in. You can always make a jump from one career to the next. You see it from any age level, kind of making that switch from wherever they started. If you think about when people leave college, a lot of times they don't even know the career that they're going to go into, and so they make a career choice or a jump, and then they kind of move around the fields as they go. The next thing is that loyalty is really kind of a thing of the past. And what I mean is it's not that your building and school leaders are not looking for you to be loyal to them specifically, but when somebody becomes so loyal that they've been in a building for a long time, a lot of the times, and this happens with the way that the school systems are set up, is that you get very comfortable. And so you'll see that a lot of tech companies or just any companies in today's world, they don't really honor loyalty the way that they used to. It used to be that your parents worked at the same company and they started there in college and they were there until they retired. That's just not the case now. What happens is when you start to get kind of sedimentary for a while. If you think about when a house is built, the first time you go into the house, it's amazing, it's magnificent. But if you go and you look at it in 30 years and then you've never made any changes, it doesn't look as exciting. Lots of modifications need to be made. So if you kind of think about it in that frame of mind, you can always have that viewpoint. So you're replaceable, but also they're replaceable. So that's just something I always encourage teachers to think about. The next thing is a lot of times when you're a veteran teacher, or maybe even when you're just starting out, you forget that to do kind of a self-promotion. The thing about being in schools is that it's very departmentalized. So you have your classroom, your next teacher has their classroom, and everyone kind of has their each and own way of doing things. So one teacher may be doing a really miraculous thing, and the next teacher may be kind of skating by, and you just have these different variances throughout the school building. And with that, it doesn't really lead to an agent for real, true collaboration. When they started to do these open air office environments, they really wanted to do so because they really wanted to coerce people to collaborate with one another. When you're teaching, you don't necessarily have to do that, and a lot of times people don't know what you're doing. You just don't. So unless somebody's spending every single day in your classroom, it's hard for a principal to go into every single classroom and deal with the other things that they're doing. So it's not that you're not being supportive, but it's just something to think about, is that you need to do some sort of promotion, whether that's tweeting on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, anywhere where you're kind of being able to do that self-promotion. You'll see anyone speaking at these conferences like Jenna Lee, Jake Miller from Duct Tape, the Teacher Podcast PDs, Casey Bell, the Teach with Tech. Everyone who is being invited to these conferences like the Tech Rabbi are doing some sort of self-promotion. They're promoting pictures of their students, and this following data privacy, you can't put their faces. You can always put a smiley face over or show the work that's being done from behind, or even show a project. If you have the signed agreement from the parents, you can then showcase the students. So that's something that you can kind of keep in mind. If nobody knows who you are, think about going into a restaurant. When you go into the restaurant, nobody knows who you are. If you work in the restaurant, everybody on the restaurant side of things know who you are because you're in that environment. But the minute anyone in that environment steps outside of those four walls, nobody knows who you are. So the world of anyone who's getting invited to conferences or who's getting these scholarships or these grants are because the minute that I want to award a grant to someone, I'm going to search them up and see what are they doing. Are they being innovative? Are they doing something that's above and beyond? What are you doing to promote yourself to show me that you're going to be thriving for these students. And so when you're thriving, your students thrive. I know that from firsthand experience that when I was in a STEM school and I was feeling very, lifted and supported, and I was able to be creative, and I had a really collaborative team, and I collaborated with all the teachers across the building, I felt a greater level of success. And then when I moved to a new school, the new state, I was being pushed down and my ideas were not being valued, and therefore I could tell I would cry in the car before I would go in, and I just wasn't the best that I could be for my students. When you're feeling positive, you sometimes need to look outside of the walls that you're in and try to have a different frame of mind. By promoting yourself, you're doing something really amazing. The nice thing about quarantine has really proved that you don't need to just stick within your district walls. You can actually reach out. It has been really magical to have people presenting at conferences. I helped a teacher ambassador. She presented at a global conference, and in her presentation, she had someone from Saudi Arabia, she had someone from Europe, she had someone from Brazil, and even another teacher from Canada. So that created already a really global network, something that she didn't have before. And they started having these discussions on just things that she was very passionate about. And then you saw that passionate light up, and you could tell that that was right in her wheelhouse. She wasn't getting that internally within her school district or in her building. So what could she do on the outside? So really self-promoting yourself is a very big thing. Start small, maybe a weekly Twitter, give yourself a hashtag, something that's searchable for the parents, and then share it out with your parents. This week we did this, and give it the hashtag, Teach with Saleh or something like that. And so every time when parents go to search it, they can find it and they can easily share it as well. So it's also creating your digital footprint. So making sure that you have a digital footprint. It's great to have a class website, but unless you're being active on the social medias, I'm never gonna find your website in a search engine. So you need to have other things to tie to it. So if my webpage is called Teach with Saleh, then my Twitter hashtag is Teach with Saleh. They're gonna kind of tie together, and you'll start to see that populating more and more so that it's easily found. The next thing I would like to say is, let's say that you're really passionate about a specific content area. So for me, I'm very passionate about STEM and about computer science. So I really wanna bring STEM into my classroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to look around and see if there's any, STEM grants, maybe some STEM Facebook groups that I could be a part of. Maybe there's a specific hashtag I can follow on Twitter. And then I'm going to start to find something that's going to spark that joy in me. Maybe a project I saw another teacher try, and maybe I reach out to that project. So for me, it was when I moved here to Texas, even though I'd already done some STEM stuff, I needed to think about in a little bit different scale about how I could bring this in. So for me, it was AJ Giuliani's, which I mentioned before, his passion project. I've done something similar like it in the past, but this was kind of a different framework, and I really enjoyed it. I actually heard it on Angela Watson's Truth for Teacher podcast. And in that, he was talking about, the students coming up with their own list of activities. And so I did, and I was getting a lot of pushback from my principal. So what I did is I had the kids come up with their passion project ideas. I made them first list out 5 ideas, then get with a friend and cross off a couple of ideas and have just 3 that they could bring back to the classroom. So they bring back their 3 classroom ideas, and then they have to choose one of those that they want to learn about and pitch it to us as a whole classroom. And we give them feedback, and then that's where I would provide the resources. So as I'm working through this project that is very exciting, I'm making sure to tie in before I launch this to them by giving them these ideas that I'm already tying in my standards that I need to be covering for this specific unit. So I'm tying it into that. And then what I did is I then invited those administrators who were trying to push me down into my classroom to show them what this looks like when the kids are also feeling sparked joy. And then I started to, even though I'd already made my mind about transitioning out of the classroom, then I really saw the principals and administration also getting on the same page as me, because now they felt invited in, and now they could really see growth potential of these students. You have your students who are at risk and who don't ever get the chance to shine because they're always being pulled out for groups and things like that. That gives them a bigger leverage, and then it also pushes those GT type students to the next threshold. When making these decisions for my passion project, I make sure that it's data driven when I bring it to the principal. So I can say this and this amount of students are needed in the STEM field. I was just listening to a podcast recently that most women under the age of 35 actually don't stay in the tech profession. It's very heavily male dominated. They don't really know how to work within the confines of kind of working with other people because they didn't have that skill set before. So bringing that data to the table might make your principal understand those different standpoints. So invite your leadership into your classrooms, invite your parents. What we have to start thinking about is you don't need to be isolated in your classrooms. It's really important to invite people who are giving you a hard time to see what it is that you're doing and how impactful and innovative it is and how much more engagement you actually have from your students. It's really going to lift you in that setting. Let's say that might not be working for you. The next step would be to reach out to others within your position throughout the district. A lot of times we don't collaborate much with one another unless it's self-led. So we might not collaborate with the other 5 elementary schools in our district, and so we kind of each are doing our own thing on our own islands, but never really speaking about it together. So if I'm really passionate about STEM and the passion project that I'm doing, I actually would like to do it with other teachers in the other buildings across the district. So I'm going to send an email message to them. Hey guys, here's what I've been thinking about. Here's some specific data points, and then tie them in and see if they're excited about it as well. Now you can Zoom chat with one another. You can, kind of divvy up the project amongst each other and really have a much greater threshold for success when you're working with more people. Everyone can work really great in isolation, but at some point you need some extra feedback from someone somewhere. Every single person, from Bill Gates to Elon Musk to our presidents to anyone who's in a higher up position of power, has had someone who they've been able to kind of collaborate with at some point or another. So you do that, and then you also reach out to your district leaders. So somebody in the district office, say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing, and then also invite them in and kind of have this conversation with them and say, hey, I've tried this. Here are some plans that I put together for the next 4 units of science that we're doing that will really tie nicely to doing some project-based, STEM-based type learning, and then kind of have that launch of planning. What really helps you out in this situation is that if there becomes a position, as there is going to be with the shakeup from COVID-19, is that we're going to see that the thinking models hopefully are going to start progressing to future ready type skills, and STEM really does a really great job for that. Come up with a plan of how you can utilize it. I already reached out to these other schools. Here's what we've done. Here's how many students we've been able to accomplish. Here is the pre-test, and here's a post-test, and here's how much growth they showed. So really making sure that you're tying it to those data points. But when those job positions open and you are very interested in applying, now you're connected with somebody at the district as well. So now it's not just your 4 walls. Now you have other teachers across your district, you have somebody in the district office, and then you have a little bit more self-promotion than you would have done before. You have it on Twitter now, you have it on your website, you have all kinds of means of communication of how you've been going through with this project. A lot of times when I speak with teachers, they want to start huge. They want to take on a lot of massive projects. Your picture is too big. You need to hone in on something that is really doable and manageable for the time being. So maybe you're starting small with an engineering type project where you're working through the engineering design process. Think about scaling it back. You're never going to be really great at something if you do all the things all the time. You need to make it smaller and much more manageable of a task. Like I might want to learn how to sew this year, and maybe really hone in on my baking skills, which are not great. And maybe I want to do some web development and I want to do some marketing. I'm going to have to figure out how I can segment those to get to my greater goal of what I want. And that is that I want to be recognized at conferences or whatever it is that your goal is. You have to make sure that your goals align with your end goal. And that's just an important factor to have. And then having someone that you view as some kind of a mentor. So find somebody that you can kind of sync up with and kind of run through your ideas. That's an outside party that is not going to hold some certain ideas like, oh, that's not going to work, or oh, no one would ever go for that. Find someone who's going to be your cheerleader, who's going to also speak straight truth to you. You don't want someone who's just like, oh, yeah, but giving you the truth and reality of situations. So find somebody. You might connect with them in, maybe it's something on LinkedIn or somewhere that you've kind of connected with someone through that way, and then have, that relationship building piece of that. The last thing I would say is look around your local community at the businesses that are around. And I would reach out to the local businesses, or, you could be in a small manufacturing town, you could be in a small farm town, you could be in somewhere like Austin where there's startup buzz around you pre-COVID. Not so much of a buzz now, but it's still buzzing. With all the changes that are happening. But then you reach out to those businesses and you say, okay, what are some things that you're finding when you're hiring your employees that are missing skills? And start, connecting, maybe reach out to one a week, or, kind of keep it in an email chain and ask them, if I do a project, would you mind sitting on this panel and giving feedback to my students. So now they're getting authentic feedback from not only you, but from the businesses surrounding you. And so that's just going to be a much more meaningful, impactful way to make the differences that you want to make. So I hope that those strategies help you and give you kind of a different skill set of thinking about things. If ever you have any questions, any wonderings, you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or you can hit me up below here in the comment section. I appreciate all the time that you give me. Remember, as always, to comment below. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Once again, I want to thank you so much for following along on this journey. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment below. And until next time, bye.